Shut up, Evan.
Lee Pace, I am honored to have you here. I feel like it's a long time coming. I don't know how you feel about it.
I absolutely feel like it's a long time coming, and I'm ready to really do this.
I know that you've sat down with an interviewer for a long period of time, but maybe they're taking a few quotes here and there. Have you done like a long form, I am going to talk on a microphone for an hour?
I don't know that I have, and certainly not in a long time when, you know, people now, podcasts are such a thing, because I don't understand how anyone talks for an hour or listens to it. And I'm worried that I'm going to bore people to death.
I don't think you are.
I'm putting my interview in your hands.
Okay, great. I have capable hands, very capable hands. I do want to get a little bit meta about interview though, because it's something I've been thinking a lot about recently. I had an experience where I was listening to Terry Gross interviewed on the Talk Easy pod, and I was bowled over with inspiration coming out of that interview. And it really changed the way that I want to approach what I do. I was so inspired by her.
What did you get out of it? What was it?
I couldn't believe the amount of depth and range of topics. Her husband passed away not too long ago, and it's a subject with someone that I would never have broached, just because it's personal and it feels raw. And as someone who myself has experienced grief, I would not feel comfortable. I don't know how I would react if someone asked me in a podcast about it. And yet her ability to answer the question emotionally, work through the discomfort, and have that grief be 1/30th of the ground covered in the interview. The other thing she talked about that really stuck with me was how much she loves to work. She was talking about the fact that my work is my passion.
And she was the subject.
She was the subject.
Well, my goodness, she's been on the other side of it for such a long time. She knows, you know, how powerful an interview can be.
Yes. You've been interviewed for so much of your career, and I'm wondering what's your relationship like to being interviewed?
It's very weird having to speak for yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like weird to have to answer for the record. Like, how do you feel about your career or yourself or anything like that? It's not always a natural conversation. And you're also, you know, submitting to it and, you know, giving it over to someone to make, you know, they'll say their impressions of you or, you know, anything else. It's usually pretty fine. I mean, nothing terrible has happened. Yet. But it's a very, I share your interest in the whole, like, what is this, you know, 20th century thing that we do?
Well, I've spoken about it with past guests. I just think it's such an interesting aspect of being an actor. When an expert in any other field is being interviewed, the chances are that 99.9% of that interview is going to be spent talking about their area of expertise. And yet with actors, we, the public, feel this right to know about them. And I'm really intrigued by that as someone who consumes a lot of this information and feels that sense, but then I question where that comes from.
I work with a lot of actors, and they're fascinating people. You know, there's something very complicated about most actors, and they're not by any means perfect people, but that's what makes them so magnetic. You know, they're complex. They're funny. Most of the times very, very funny, but then, you know, they've got this, you know, way of looking at things that some of them, they're all, I mean, as you know, like, and as you know, every actor is got its, their own kind of magic. And, you know, you could say that acting is a profession, but it's not really. It's kind of a weird thing people do, you know, and a lot of them are just very, like, magical in a way. There's something transfixing about their face and how they look at things, their voice. I mean, when you've been talking about Terry Gross, that voice. It is such a beautiful voice.
Very calming.
Very calming, but the tone is so beautiful. It's yes, calming, but it's also transparent. I need to listen to this interview now because I can imagine, I would be curious to hear that voice describe its own story.
Listening to that interview, I found it life affirming. It was so powerful, and it sort of did something to me in terms of wanting me to be better at what I do. But it's a tricky thing with interview, right? Because she was asked if she thinks it's an art form, and she said no. But I think there's an artistry to the interview, especially when in conversation with artists.
Well, it is a conversation, isn't it? So do you find when you interview people that you're like, oh, that's interesting, and that person actually wants to talk about that, and so I want to keep drawing that subject out. Do you find that when you talk to people?
Yes.
Like, it's not something that you've pre-planned. It's something that you're like, I want that. I want to know more about that.
So what I do now is I pick several themes that I want to get out of the person. I used to be very prescriptive and have, here's question 1, here's question 20. And what I found was I could never get to questions, 13 through 20. And so much of the interview internally was spent, oh my God, I'm not getting through this. There's a there, and I'm not able to get there. And it took me out. Whereas when I started to re-engineer how I think about the interview, it sort of gave me a freedom and allowed the interview to go where it needs to go. One of the things I took away from Terry's conversation was how free-flowing it was.
Do you think she guided that interview of herself?
No. I got the sense that she submitted and she trusted the interviewer. His name is Sam Fragasso. You said at the top of this jokingly, like, I'm in your hands. I could feel like the hands that he was holding her in, she was comfortable in them.
Well, there are roles in an interview. There's a subject and the interviewer. So I am in your hands. What have you got?
I want to learn a little bit more about Juilliard. You went through a system that accepts greatness, nourishes greatness, and lets out greatness. That's the perception.
Well, you work with a lot of really great material, and I'm talking Shakespeare, Chekhov, because that's the curriculum is the classics. And I just got to experiment and be goofy and fail in a safe way, and it was just a wonderful experience. I look back on it and I think, like, the pleasure of education is not just where it gets you, it's the experience you have while you're getting it. And I think about all the different roles I got to play that I would never get cast as outside. So for me, that's when I think back on the time, I think I just feel very lucky to have, even had found out about it. I went to like a high school in the suburbs of Texas. So how did I even know that this school in New York existed? I can't tell you. I can't tell you like why I thought I could get into it, or why I thought it would make sense for me to go. But when I think back on the experience, I just think, God, how lucky I was to spend, from when I was 17 when I started, 17 to 21 at that place. We lived in Lincoln Center. We sat out on the plaza, which is different now. It's been redeveloped and stuff. But we would sit out there and talk about, Yelena's motivations in the third act of Uncle Vanya for hours. Thinking about the character. And I realize now when we were discussing it, we were bringing ourselves to it in some way because it was the sense we could make of what she was doing inside the scene. And in the debating of it, or, brainstorming different kind of approaches to, playing any scene, that's what we were really learning about was ourselves, in one way or another.
What was it like coming from Texas, moving to New York at 18? You're new to the college education system, but you're also new to this city. And this city, I know I moved here at 18 years old, and it felt like a new life began for me. And I'm wondering if you felt similarly.
Oh, absolutely. I was a very young 18-year-old too. Like I was young, very, I wouldn't say, a sheltered person. When I was young for well into my 20s, I would say, like, a lot of energy and, I hadn't learned life yet. And my time when I first got here, I had this, we were there from like 8:30 in the morning till 11 o'clock at night every day, 6 days a week at least, And then my mom got me the meal plan at school. So if I wanted to eat on Sundays, I went up to school to do it because I didn't, like I said, very young, I didn't, know how to buy my own food. So I was, that's another thing I'm really grateful for about Juilliard is that it kept me very occupied for those first 4 years of being out of my parents' house. We were busy.
They work, yeah. I want to talk about your Broadway debut in 2011 in Larry Kramer's The Normal Heart. I want to read you the opener to Ben Brantley's New York Times review. He writes, more than a quarter of a century after it first scorched New York, The Normal Heart is breathing fire again. The passionately acted new Broadway production of Larry Kramer's watershed drama from 1985, an indictment of a world unwilling to confront the epidemic that would come to be known as AIDS, blasts you like an open, overstoked furnace. Your eyes are pretty much guaranteed to start singing before the first act is over, and by the play's end, even people who think they have no patience for polemical theater may find their resistance has melted into tears. No, make that sobs. In a statement upon closing, producer Daryl Roth remarked, I don't think we were fully prepared for the overwhelming and emotional audience response night after night. I'm wondering what that experience was like for you on the inside.
When Joe Mantello called me to be a part of it, he told me it would be a staged reading, that we would get there, we would have music stands set up, and we would figure out some way to do it. We had about a week and a half in a rehearsal space to rehearse it, and the cast, Joe Mantello, John Benjamin Hickey, Ellen Barkin, Jim Parsons, me and Hickey shared a dressing room, Luke Evans, Patty Breen. We just started, everyone came in off book, and we would sit there in the hallway of the rehearsal room when other scenes were being rehearsed and run lines with each other. And so it came together so quickly, the staging of it. And I don't think we had many previews, maybe a week of previews, and it was like up and going. And so if ever there was just this magical kind of alchemy of something that came together, it was that. And the whole experience of playing it was, we just had the time of our lives. I remember Ellen Barkin, halfway through it, she was like, you get one of these in your life. You get one. And it is absolutely true. The experience was extraordinarily fun. We would spend half hour listening to Nicki Minaj and Diana Ross and the band, and just laugh and then we would get our places call, and we would do that fucking play, which was painful and terrifying. And I have to say, Joe Mantello, to be on stage with him and watch him bring Ned Weeks to life, he was ferocious, and it was different every night. He made different sense of it every night, but it was true to to Larry Kramer, who was involved the whole time. Larry Kramer would come every night and in a bright orange coat stand outside during intermission, handing out flyers saying, these are the issues of today, that we're fighting for. The fight's not over, and I'm still out here fighting, so you should be too. And there's so many incredibly memorable moments of that run. Marriage Equality passed while we were on stage. So we came down one night and we were waiting for our curtain call, and the producers were backstage, and we were like, what's going on? And they're like, we just have a little announcement to make. And they came in and announced it. And you could have, I get chills thinking about how that audience cheered, leapt to their feet after they had been sobbing together, taking in this play. I get chills thinking about how meaningful that movement that Larry Kramer started after he'd written Normal Heart, and it was an incredible experience. Really, really I love those people so much. Friends for life.
I remember seeing it. It was my senior year of college, and I had never experienced that level of emotional output from an audience before. It felt like a cathartic healing moment at the end. And I remember the feeling of going outside, and Larry was out there afterwards, and thinking how odd it was to like return to the world after seeing that play.
It only happens in a play, that thing. It's like you watch it together with, you know, the people you're sitting next to, the rest of the full theater. You're experiencing something that only happens once. You'll do it, the players will do it again the next night, but you're only watching it together in this moment. They're only saying that line in this moment. And what happens, you know, when you do it again and again is like, it's always different every night. The moment always hits a little bit different. Something will happen. I had a very quiet monologue that I give in Normal Heart, and there were times you could hear someone sob from like way up in the balcony, and the way that interaction would just change the whole energy in the room is not something I had anything to do with, but us all collected, gathered kind of around the fire, as it were, kind of sharing the story is what happens in theater. And it's when it's that way, like it was during Normal Heart, it's like church. You feel this collective, like we're all feeling this together. And it's different than when I feel something alone, you know? You don't feel that in the same way when you're at home watching something, or you do when you see a movie with people, if it's that movie. But it's a feeling I only ever get when I see a play, because you're actually watching them up there say it, feel it, and do it, you know?
And it only happens that one time.
It's only then.
Your first film role in 2003 in A Soldier's Girl, it's the real-life story of an American GI soldier's relationship with a transgender nightclub performer and his brutal murder at the hands of his fellow soldiers. You play Calpurnia Adams, the aforementioned nightclub performer. In Interview Magazine in 2007, you said, "The reason I went into acting was to be able to play parts as complicated and important as this one. In playing a transsexual, I got the chance to help change people's perspective, and that's a powerful thing." I agree, it is a powerful thing. Nearly 2 decades later, I'm wondering, what is your perspective on the ability that art has, and I think this is connected to the conversation around the Normal Heart as well. Art has a power to change people's perception. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that now.
I don't know. I appreciate the person who said that then, and his, sense of, I'm gonna play this role, and what an incredible experience that was to play, that role. And but to your question, I when I look around, I think that a lot of people are very interested in changing perspectives, and people could listen to each other a little more and worry less about trying to convince people of their agenda or what they want to do. And so so hearing that person back, I again applaud his energy. But I don't know. I these days I just kind of want to relax and think about what I take it less seriously, to be honest. And just be myself and pursue the roles that I find entertaining and interesting, and let people take what they want from what they see. That's the thing too. I don't have to be clear about stuff, because actors, that's not part of it, really. Actors can be, changing and flawed and beguiling, and all of the different complicatedness of humans. So I don't know. I don't give it that much thought really anymore. I hope that isn't a disappointing answer.
Not at all. Would you say that the taking it less seriously is your approach to acting, or as well as your approach to life, or strictly within your craft?
Well, no, definitely just life. I don't. That's definitely a thing I would say I've gained with getting older, is that I just don't, I guess take myself as seriously as I used to, and but I think you can think about serious things and experience serious things in your own life without taking your role in it that seriously. I think that's, for me, it's become a healthy way to move forward.
Yeah.
Well,
it makes sense too. I mean, I feel like a lot of your work, I would imagine if I were, it's like you get lost in so many of these roles because you take on these people with these deeply rich backstories. A lot of these roles, they're going through it. And I watched a lot of your work in the lead up to today, and I was like, yeah, but I also think it speaks to the breadth of your work is the range of characters that you've played. Now, I don't want to choose a favorite lead role, but if I had to, it would be in 2006. You starred in Tarsem's visionary fantasy epic, The Fall. I'm wondering what impact working with such a visionary so early on in your career had on your overall perspective of wanting to make films.
I mean, I did Soldier's Girl. He had seen it, I think, before we actually the movie came out, and that's why he had cast me in The Fall. And again, like I think about both of those roles. I'm like, how did I look into these incredible experiences and opportunities to play these people? And with someone like Tarsem, who's so clear about what he wants and how he wanted to make what he wanted to make. If you haven't seen The Fall, it's a movie about a little girl who wanders into my character's hospital room. It takes place in the 1920s in California, and I'm telling her a story, and she imagines it in a pre-cinematic way because she'd never seen a movie before. So I found that premise really interesting because I feel like I dream in coverage. Now, if I were to recall my dreams, it would pretty much follow the visual language of movies that I like and have seen and have meant something to me. Tarsem was trying to break that idea with this movie and film something from the perspective of someone who's never seen a movie before. And so that was like the starting point. Every day on that set was extraordinary in one way or another. There was Katinka, who was my scene partner for all of the reality stuff, and I mean, she learned English from the course of shooting those scenes. We filmed in sequence, so we were the first day when she comes into my hospital room. That was us meeting for the first time, and we got to be. I mean, she was so brilliant and so spontaneous and honest and real. And when she asked a question, she really asked a question. You can't be a phony. You can't put on a face. You can't put on a voice when you're looking at someone like that.
For people that haven't seen this film, it is so singular. There's not a version of anything quite like it. And so when you're in the thrust of making it, going home each night, having to sort of just...
Well, at the beginning there, everyone on set thought my name was Roy and that I was handicapped. The reason Tarsem picked me to do it is because he thought no one would recognize me because of Soldier's Girl. So he wanted an actor he knew he could work with, but that no one knew. That's the reason I got The Fall, I think. I don't know. So I didn't hang out with anyone because if I did, you know what I mean, I was in a wheelchair, so I was doing that, I would on to set, everything, that was a lifestyle I was living while I was shooting it. And so I was just completely in Tarsem's hands, and he was technically, with what he was trying to achieve, I could listen to him talk for hours, and Nico, one of his collaborators, and the photographers on that set were just absolutely brilliant. So it was the second movie I'd done too. So I could learn so much about what they were doing, what they could do with that incredibly exquisite little machine, the camera. It can do so many things. It can do infinite number of things, that tool. And they knew how to work with it. And so that was one experience of, of being able to really understand better my role on the other side of that machine.
Which is interesting, thinking about, you talked earlier about when you're at Juilliard and you're looking at, these plays, right? And you're talking for hours, as you said, and analyzing, the playwright and finding this great love of acting through the written text. And then you go do this second film and you're learning about this whole other aspect, the camera, and how that changes things. And I would imagine that would kind of be a little bit of like a world explosion in a sense of being like, yes, not that the text doesn't matter. That's equally important. There's this whole other artistry within the art form of acting that influences and inspires it.
I mean, in a film, it is the artistry. I mean, what we do as actors, it's just a very small part of what the movie is. I think the real work is that camera and what the camera does. I mean, it's the whole mise en scene, the music, everything has a role in it, but it is photography. Like, that's really what, at least the part of making a film that I'm involved with, is showing up to film the scenes. And since then, like, my relationship to that camera has changed a lot, and it's, there have been times that I would feel very distracted by it because I thought I knew what it saw. And then lately, I guess I just don't, it's not my business to think about what it sees. I just want to, do what I want to make the director laugh, actually. That's really what I think about. When I think about, like, Edgar Wright coming up to me and being, like, chuckling after a take, I'm like, there, that's good.
So that's kind of like an affirmation. I evoked some emotion from the person at the helm.
Yeah.
Until recently, The Fall was not available in streaming form, not available to rent. In 2024, Mubi came forward and finally distributed the film. So for about 2 decades, this masterpiece was virtually unavailable. And I'm wondering what that was like for you to have this piece of work, your second film, your first feature film, have it be as monumental as this one, and then to have it ostensibly go into a vault.
People found it. And not many people found it, but I loved it when someone would say, I've seen The Fall, and you could only get it if you had found one of the hard copies. So it found the right people, the people that it would speak to over the years. I don't know, it made sense.
It kind of made it more special in a sense, I would imagine, as like you had to work for it.
Yeah, it made sense to me.
And if you know, you know.
Yeah.
So Foundation, Halt and Catch Fire, Pushing Daisies. You're a part of these 3 iconic television series. We were talking about theater earlier, which is a very sacred art form. It only happens that one time. Television is another art form, perhaps sacred, but unique in the fact that it comes to people where they are. Mm-hmm. And I think it creates a different relationship that audiences have with television. I'm wondering, have you felt that way the 3 times that you've done a series regular role on television?
Well, they've been very different characters and in very different formats because, the first time I did Pushing Daisies was ABC, at a time when networks were very different than they are now. And then AMC was a smaller network. We made that show for, very little money. We had a very small audience, but I'm so proud of the work we did on that show as a group of actors and the writers and the directors who came in. It was a very small little laboratory where we kind of experimented with people. That sounds really maniacal, and I don't mean it to, but with these characters that we had. So that was very different than Foundation, which I now do for a streamer, for Apple, and it's one of the biggest things I've ever been a part of. We shoot it, in Iceland and Ireland and Prague and Canary Islands, and so these huge characters. I play a galactic emperor, or even better, a cloned sequence of them.
I was going to say it's evolved over time.
Even crazier, And I play opposite an intelligent robot for most of my scenes. It's, it's sci-fi. It's like maximalist sci-fi, which is very different than Pushing Daisies and very different than Halt and Catch Fire. So I think it's very interesting what you're saying about it coming to people, into people's homes. And I wonder what that then does to movies, because now you go to, to the streamer and you can have, you don't have to make any effort to be very educated on film. Very well referenced.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. I think it changes audiences' relationship to film. We have a mutual friend, Sarah Michelle Gellar, star of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I wrote a book about Buffy, and throughout so many of my conversations with folks about that book, one of my key takeaways was the proximity and the relationship that people have with that show is so deep. And I think it's the same with a Pushing Daisies, with a Sex and the City, with so many television series. It's not that people don't feel this about film, but I think there's something about television. I think it's a combination of the coming into the home and then being able to grow with characters, and it creates a bond.
That resonates with me, the growing with someone. With Pushing Daisies, we were cut short.
Yeah.
I would love to have seen where those characters would have grown. With Halt and Catch Fire, I feel like we very much got to tell like the complete story of with Joe McMillan, this very changeable person who's looking for the right fit, who's got the right idea at the wrong time, who's at odds with the gods in a way, and it was to get to explore that character and dig deeper with him was really great experience. And we're in the middle of shooting Foundation right now, and we're going back for a 4th season, and and I love developing this character, even though it's a sequence of characters, because I think about it as the same thing. I think about it as kind of like okay, now we'll, go in this direction with him, but it's actually the same as it was in a way. That's the riddle of the character, is that, the Cleons are all different from each other, but they're the same. Anyway, that's skipping steps in this interview.
Fun. You took the reins for a moment. See what happens? I'm really interested in 2012 in the Lee Pace lore. At that point, you'd worked with some of the masters, as we said, Spielberg and Tom Ford, and then you go on a 5-film run in 2 years, starring in the Twilight Saga, Breaking Dawn Part 2, all 3 Hobbit films, and the Guardians of the Galaxy. Each of these films are made with budgets of upwards of $100 million. I'm wondering what that period was like, both in terms of the scale of productions, but also the rigor and churn of making so many projects in such a truncated amount of time.
I'm someone who, like, maybe it's just like school mentality. I hang out with the people I'm sitting with, at lunch, and I'm not great at texting with people to stay in touch. I'm sure Sarah will affirm that for you. She hates how I behave on text.
Text her back.
I need to text her back, I know. But it's just because I just kind of hang out with who I'm with at the time. But it was like such different groups of people. And I had close friends, and I set friends that I developed while I was doing each of those projects. But I think back on it as a really insane time. It was there was lots of different environments, incredible people that I was getting to spend time with, and very, very different kitchens, I guess is the best way to say it.
Very different kitchens.
Yeah.
Did the recognition that came with being in films of that stature, did that do anything to your equilibrium at all?
I have to say my instruments are not really attuned to understand that in any way, then or now. I don't really understand it.
I think it's a good thing. I think a lot of people perhaps spend too much time thinking about it. So I think there's a great virtue.
It being, what is it? Where have we gone with it? What is it?
The idea of fame, right? And like the concept of fame, and fame as existing within a Venn diagram of acting, but being this other thing that sort of, again, sometimes there's a crossover. But fame, we're talking about fame, the idea of fame.
Yeah.
So your next project, The Running Man, is a remake of the 1987 film, which was based on Stephen King's 1982 novel. It's an Edgar Wright directed project, and you play Evan McCone, Evan, one of the hunters. With a movie that is this styled, I'm wondering, when you get the script, obviously there's the written page and there's this happens and whatnot, but I imagine there's some kind of conversation that has to happen with Edgar in which he paints the visual language of the film for you. I mean, even if you watch this trailer, like, there's a propulsive nature to this film that I don't think could be evident strictly from the script. Can you talk about the kind of conversation that you have with someone like Edgar going into a project like this?
I remember because I was about to go hiking. I went out and camped for about 4 days. And on the way up to that trip, solo, I had the call with Edgar about doing this. And it was before I'd read it. And he basically described what he was going to make and what he wanted me to do in the film. And it's pretty much, what he did. It's exactly what he did. But he described this character of this ghost who's haunting Ben Richards, Glenn Powell's character, hunting him down, and that I would wear a mask to play the character, and I thought that was fun, just fun. And so then I went away to the on my hike, and one of the things I love about hiking and spending time out in the woods is that you just think about whatever you want to think about. And if you pay attention to where your mind goes, you find that you end up you're only really thinking about 3 different things in one form or another. And one of the things I'm usually thinking about is the role that I'm about to play. And so I remember just walking around thinking about the way Edgar had described this character to me over that phone call, which is exactly what we did. So it's like you're working even when you're hiking. It's all just thinking about it.
It's all just thinking.
Yeah.
Thinking in general.
What was fun about it, what I thought would look cool in the character, as far as what his clothes would be, because he's basically the star of this reality TV show where he hunts people down and kills them.
It's remarkably prescient.
That's not. I mean.
Okay, couple last questions to wrap us up.
I mean,
you don't want to go into that?
It's so grim, isn't it?
It's quite. Yeah. Practical Magic 2. We are all shaking. We are excited that this film is getting made. I'm excited to see you in would you call Practical Magic what genre is Practical Magic? Like, it's not a comedy. It's romance. Yeah, I don't even know.
Well, the Owen sisters, you die if you try to get with an Owen sister.
Yeah.
So that's not the most romantic, but it is a comedy.
Yeah.
That is funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, all of the above.
Can you talk about getting the call to be involved with this? This is a film that means a lot to a lot of people. And particularly with this film, it's not a film that people were clamoring for a sequel for because they just didn't think it was possible, right? This was just not something that was in the ether. Then all of a sudden we find out from Nicole and from Sandra that we're getting one. Then we learn you're a part of it. Is there anything you can illuminate about the filmmaking process besides the fact that you had a great time?
I mean, we haven't finished it yet.
Oh.
So I don't want to say too much about it other than it was so much fun. It was, okay, I'll tell you, my first day of filming, I have my eyes closed, and I hear their voices. And I talk about 2 beautiful voices, Nicole Kidman and Sandra Bullock. And it's like each of them has incredibly distinctive but beautiful tones to their voice. So I'm just like laying there with my eyes closed, hearing them begin the scene before I enter it, and listening to these voices. I'm just gonna leave that. I mean, it's
a beautiful visual.
It's like what an opportunity to like lay there quietly and listen to Nicole Kidman and Sandra Bullock enter the room. I mean, it was there were times I felt like I'd won a contest. not lost on me how lucky I was to be working with them.
To close, are you aware of the 6'5" honorific that comes before your name, and how do you feel about it?
I thank you for that.
You thank
me?
me?
Yeah. I think that you had a role to play in that, didn't you? Or maybe?
Perhaps.
I mean, I look, men know that like size fluctuates, right? And so I would safely say that I'm between like 6'3" and 6'6". So 6'5" is a really good, depending on what shoes you wear, depending on, the temperature outside, you're different size.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. As I said, I was watching a lot of your work in the lead up to today, and I watched your appearance on a season 3 episode of The Mindy Project. Mm-hmm. And in that episode, you make a joke because you kind of play like a crypto financier or something. And you make a joke at one point saying that Madame Tussauds messed up your wax figure and made it only 6'3".
Wow, you really did research.
That Mindy Project episode, you are terrific.
Oh, thanks.
I hope that you will do more comedy.
I was so excited when she asked me to be a part of it, and I adore Mindy Kaling, and I had such a great time with her on set, and Ike Barinholtz, who was there. I would love to be a part of something like that again. I didn't get asked to do many things like that, so when she asked me to be a part of it, I was like, wow, what a fun experience. And it was.
Highly recommend.
Yeah.
To close us out, if you were to recommend one Lee Pace film or television piece of work of yours, what do you want people to go watch?
Possession.
Stop.
No, it's true.
This is 2011's Possession, starring you and Sarah Michelle Gellar together. I imagine this shot before Lincoln.
I think so, yeah.
I'm LOLing at the fact that you went from shooting Possession to Lincoln. Not because I'm disparaging Possession. Possession was it released in theaters?
I don't remember, but I do remember having the time of my life when we shot that movie. It was the first movie I'd shot in Vancouver, which is one of my favorite places in the world. It was discovering Stanley Park. Squamish, Garibaldi Trail. I love Vancouver, and me and Sarah had the time of our life working on those scenes together. She's a big joker. Do you know?
I do.
So I remember one day being away for a hike, and I came back at like 11 o'clock at night, and she had covered my hotel room with pictures of herself. And it was not just like, it was like taped to the lid of the toilet seat, stuffed in my pockets, in my shoes, in my socks. I found pictures of Sarah years later.
It's like my dream.
Like,
do you want to know, funny enough, I know this story recounted to me from you years ago when I interviewed you for the Buffy book. One thing I always will say about you, I messaged you, this was many years ago, I'm like, I'm trying to talk to people for this Buffy book, blah, blah, blah. And you said to me, I've never seen Buffy, embarrassingly so, but I love Sarah so much that I'd be happy to do an interview. And I just was like so moved by that because that's my number one.
Such an extraordinarily generous, funny person. Like, has fun. Like, she's here to have fun.
Yes.
And I love that kind of thing.
Okay, that's the perfect way for us to close because I wasn't going to, I did already evoke her name earlier, but I wasn't going to bring up Possession just because, in your film canon, not, the premiere entry, but maybe so. Maybe it is. Yeah, well. Fuck the Fall. Just kidding. Anyway, Lee, thank you so very much. How did this go for you? Because, there was some trepidation, not with me, but just, sitting down for an hour.
There was trepidation. Yeah, it was pretty painless.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it was you. I don't know that I know that I'm going to do a whole bunch of podcasts.
As long as you do this one, I don't care what else you do.